Welcome to Your Healthy Kitchen from Dignity Health Yavapai Regional Medical Center.
Welcome to Dignity Health YRMC's Your Healthy Kitchen. I'm your host, Rita Carey Rubin. You know, prostate cancer is the second most commonly diagnosed cancer worldwide. But good research suggests that lifestyle and diet play an important role in the prevention and treatment of prostate cancer, and we are going to explore a bit more about that today. And I'll also make a delicious recipe that's packed with protective phytochemicals that may reduce your risk. In many of the diet and lifestyle recommendations for the prevention of prostate cancer are similar to recommendations for the prevention of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and other types of cancers. So the top 5 for prostate cancer prevention are: quit smoking, get regular, if not daily, physical activity, maintain a healthy weight, reduce your intake of processed foods and especially added sugars, and eat a big variety of colorful fruits and vegetables. And really good research shows that those 5 healthy habits support your immune system and reduce inflammation, which is one of the conditions that may trigger cancer and other forms of chronic disease. And there are also several nutrients in foods that have been linked specifically to a reduced risk of prostate cancer. And my recipe today features a few of those. So let's get cooking, and we'll talk more about the cancer-fighting medicine in food. So the recipe today features tomatoes. It's actually a really simple roasted tomato recipe. I like it for several reasons. One is it's really easy, just minutes to put it together, and then all of the cooking is really hands-off. You just stick it in the oven and go. Also, because we can use tomatoes that aren't necessarily really flavorful, that's really an advantage. So, you know, especially in the spring, winter months, you may not find any tomatoes in the farmer's market or certainly not in your backyard. And relying on grocery store tomatoes, you'll find that they don't necessarily taste really good. So with roasting, we can really bring out the sweetness in the tomatoes. We can add more flavor depending on what we put in the roasting pan. So it's a great use for just, you know, simple, inexpensive grocery store tomatoes. And you can use really any kind of tomato that's not too juicy. So when we're roasting, if the tomatoes are too juicy, it's just going to take a really long time for them to cook. So my favorite tomatoes to use are Romas, or some grape tomatoes or cherry tomatoes. Those seem to do pretty well. So tomatoes, the reason why I'm using those in this video is that they contain a chemical called lycopene. And that's a phytochemical, or a healthy plant chemical, that has been shown to prevent prostate cancer. But we'll talk more about that lycopene in a little bit. But first, let's put our dish together. So just take your tomatoes, whatever they are, and cut them in half. The Romas I like to cut in half lengthwise. You can cut that little stem part off or just leave it on. I usually just leave it on. It doesn't bother me at all. So just cut them in half. I'm going to layer them in a baking pan. And you can put them in there pretty tightly because they're going to shrink when you bake them. So just piling those in there as best as you can. And then we'll just add a little bit of flavor. So first, sprinkling a little bit of salt on the tomatoes. The salt will add a little flavor, also help to break down the tissues in the tomatoes a little bit, so they get more tender more quickly. And then I'm going to smash a few cloves of garlic. And you can either slice these or just roughly chop them or break them apart. I'm just going to tuck them into the pan around the tomatoes. And garlic is one of those superfoods, really. You know, we've got so many phytochemicals, beneficial phytochemicals in garlic that are anti-inflammatory, antioxidant in nature, also stimulate your immune system. So all of that is so important for preventing prostate cancer and other chronic diseases. So there's my garlic. And then I'm going to slice up some fresh ginger. And ginger also is packed with antioxidants and anti-inflammatory chemicals. And it's so delicious. You can use fresh ginger in so many dishes. So to use it, simply break off one of the little knobs And you might just cut it into a shape that's usable and easy to peel. And I find that one of the easiest ways to peel garlic is just using a teaspoon. So I'm just using the edge of the spoon to scrape off. The skin is really, really thin. There's not much to it. And if you use a spoon, you can actually preserve more of the ginger. And instead of when you use a knife, you might really cut into the ginger and lose a lot of it. So just using the side of a spoon, scraping off that skin. And if there's a little skin left, no big deal, because you're actually not going to eat this ginger. It's really there for flavor. So there's a couple chunks I'm just going to slice off here. And when you buy ginger, if you're not going to use all of it, which is usually the case, stick it in the freezer. You put it in a plastic bag. It freezes really well. You can just put it right in just like that. And then you can cut off pieces as you need them. You can also grate the ginger and freeze the grated ginger as well. So easy way to make sure you use up all that ginger without it going bad. So I'm just going to tuck in the ginger. And then some fresh herbs. So I have some thyme that's from my garden. Thyme is pretty fun to grow around here because it really lasts throughout the winter. And it's one of the first fresh herbs you can get out of your garden in the spring. So I'm putting sprigs of thyme in. You could also use rosemary is another one that lasts the winter. And basil. So if you make these in the summertime, basil tastes really good with this too. That's it. That's the dish. And last step is just pouring some olive oil over it all. And I'm going to use a fair amount of olive oil and making sure that the olive oil is poured over the top of the tomatoes so that when they roast, they don't dry out. And I'm putting enough olive oil in there so that there's a fair amount on the bottom of the pan, because with the roasting, with the blending of the juices from the tomatoes into the olive oil, you're going to get this really yummy sauce and an infused olive oil, really. And you can use that olive oil for other uses. You can use it in a salad dressing, or you could use it to saute some vegetables. That's the basis of a tomato soup, or lots and lots of different ways to use that. And you're not necessarily eating all the olive oil all at once that's going into this pan. So that's it. You stick it in the oven, 350. This would probably take a couple hours. So the bigger tomatoes take a little bit longer to roast. And I'll grab mine out of the oven. And that's what they look like. So super versatile. You can use these just as is. They would make a really nice little side dish on your plate, or as an appetizer, maybe with some yummy cheese or something like that. You can also use them in a tomato sauce. So I could take these, saute some garlic and onions, and throw those in the pot, and then blend it all up and make sort of an Asian-style tomato sauce. Could also freeze them. That's one way to preserve your tomatoes for a longer period of time, is they freeze really well. So I would take these and put them in a plastic Ziploc bag and stick them in the freezer. So then you have roasted tomatoes you can pull out of the freezer and use for a variety of dishes. Another way I've used these is to roast tofu. It's really good. I'll slice tofu and just pat it dry, because you want to get as much moisture out of the tofu as you can. And I'll slide the tofu in there with all the other ingredients and bake it all together. And that's really a delicious way to use those roasted tomatoes. So they're a great source of lycopene. So that's one of those plant-based chemicals, like I said, and that's linked with reduced prostate cancer risk. And it's a carotenoid. There's about 6 different carotenoids, and they're made by plants, and they're found in red, orange, and green vegetables, herbs, and fruits. And all carotenoids act as antioxidants. And that means that they protect your cells, your blood vessels, your nerves, and your organs from damage every day. But lycopene seems to be the most powerful carotenoid, or powerful carotenoid with antioxidant action out there. And to improve the absorption of the lycopene in your food, it helps for the tomatoes anyway, it helps if the tomatoes are cooked, and also if it's served with some fat, because lycopene is a fat-soluble chemical, so you need a little bit of fat to be able to absorb it better into your body. So other good sources of lycopene, they include, as well as tomatoes, watermelon, papaya, dried apricots, pink grapefruit, carrots, asparagus, and parsley. So you can see red, pink, orange, and green foods right there that are a real good source of that particular antioxidant. So another phytochemical associated with reduced prostate cancer risk is something called epigallocatechin-3 gallate, or EGCG. And it's also a potent antioxidant. It's found in green tea. And like lycopene, it's been studied extensively. And most studies conclude that the beneficial effects of green tea are dose-dependent, meaning that you have to take in a fair amount of it. About 5 cups or more a day might be best for preventing prostate cancer. Fair amount of green tea. So consider replacing that giant mug of coffee that you have in the morning with some green tea, and you get some added protection. So remember to check out all of our instructional videos and our delicious health-promoting recipes at yrmchealthconnect.org. And you can follow me on Facebook too, where I post photos and videos of the meals I make in my own kitchen, plus links to my favorite food and gardening destinations on the web. So until next time, eat well and be well, and we'll see you soon.